Hi, I'm Dave March, and welcome to the Land of Confusion show. And this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Don Tillman, hanging in Palo Alto, California, and
I'm Jenna Stocker. I'm here in gloomy fall Minnesota.
So hey, there's a Trump rally there.
Yes, yeah, I think he's in Duluth.
Right
tonight.
now.
Yeah,
Tonight.
yeah. Oh, today?
You going?
No, that's about 4 hours north of here, from Minneapolis. So I'm not going. But
reminds me, back in the day when, like in the early '70s, there were a lot of, British musicians, British bands were really popular, and they booked them tours across the country. And the people who booked the tours really had no concept of the distance between some of the cities. And there were some, funny stories that resulted from that. Like, bands that had to shoot halfway across the country in about 2 days in a van with questionable maintenance, all while driving on the wrong side of the street. So yeah, it's very tough.
Yeah, maybe David can. Well, you probably can too, Don. You get farther west you get, everything is so far apart. And east you can get into, I don't know, 4 or 5 states in a day, and out west it's the opposite. So,
well, more than that, the cities are there's no space between them in the East Coast. I mean, I grew up on Long Island, and there's I grew up on Long Island just outside of the Queens border. It turns out that Brooklyn and Queens are physically on Long Island, but neither Brooklyn, Queens, nor Long Island will admit it. But anyway, I grew up there, and sure enough, just the cities, there was nothing between them along there. And here in the West Coast, where I am now, there's enormous, desolate expanses between the cities, and you only have 4 of them. Right.
Yeah. I mean, the same with the Midwest, and I always laugh when people talk about overpopulation. Like, well, all you have to do is get, a little bit west of the Mississippi, not even, and it's just, you drive all day and not hit a city, just go through pastures and see some cows, and, so. Different
Ontario's
world.
a little different in that way, or at least in my part, but if I were to go north, I would encounter that after about half a day. Once I get I used to work in the grocery business, and one day we had my boss was like, "Can you review these new grocery stores they're looking to add to our network?" And I said, "Okay, well here's the travel times." And like, wait a minute, Wawa's on this list. We're not driving to Wawa. That's Manitoba's problem. It's like it's like the last store before you leave
the
Ontario.
last post.
Yeah, it's like.
So David, what is due north of you?
Due north of me, you mean due north of? I would think most of Toronto, so Toronto here. Then there's Barrie, which is like a city of about 150,000, and then beyond Barrie, you get into smaller things like North Bay, Thunder Bay, and then once you get through past Thunder Bay, you take this big curve around Lake Superior, and you're hitting cities of 10,000 people till you hit Wawa, which is 1,000 people, and then you hit Manitoba.
Hey, geography lesson for the day.
Yep. Why don't we get to now? We've heard Don tell us where he grew up. Why don't we ask Jenna where she grew up?
Excellent question.
Yes. I grew up in the Minneapolis area, so I'm from here. I graduated from the University of Minnesota, and my parents still live in the same house that I grew up in, which was the house my grandfather built. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool. And I'm loving the accent.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I lived in DC for a while. Sure. Yeah, I know. We're very close. I'd call home. People would know on Monday when I talked to my folks, because my folks. because my
It's
accent
great.
would be a little. I'll go with the whole Fargo thing. So, and my Minnesotan would come out a little bit stronger. So, but
There's
no,
another thing. I went to school in Madison.
Oh, okay.
And so I heard those when I went there. I heard those accents for the first time, and I just, oh, this is so sweet.
Yeah, they're for real. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so great.
Yeah. When I first met people from Michigan, I heard their accents. I'm like, really? You guys have
those
an accent?
Michiganders. Oh.
Yeah.
So like when the Milwaukee police chief, David Clark, comes on, I can hear the Milwaukee accent in his voice, and it just charms the heck out of me. It's just great.
It is one of the great things about America. We have everywhere from our regions of food to geography to driver types to accents. It's just it's very diverse, but we all manage to mostly get along all right. So, but so I graduated from the U, and then I went to a year of law school, and it was a huge mistake because it was lawyering is not for me. It's just not my speed, and wasn't interested in it, and decided to take an internship in Washington, D.C., and then they hired me full time, and I had nothing. I had like a box because I thought I was just going to stay for the summer. So I ended up staying for a couple years, and then I joined the military. I went to officer candidate school in Quantico, and then I was stationed there as a Marine Corps officer. And after that, I came back to Minnesota and been here since. So I have two older brothers that went to California, and then they came back here to raise families. So kind of been all over the place, but
yeah, I've been to Quantico. Those are some ugly ass buildings.
They're terrible. I mean, yeah, they're about as basic as you can get. Yeah, I mean, just and they're not too pretty on the inside either. Oh, no.
Interesting, and it's like, nope, it's not.
No, I think they do it for a reason. I don't know. I don't want people hanging out. So you don't want to be too comfortable, right? So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So
So you're in Minneapolis now, right?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Well, I sort of hold my breath because my husband and I talk a lot about and this happened with the Breonna Taylor case after the grand jury decision came down, and we kind of wait so the trial is going to start, and we're sort of worried about what's going to happen after that. We drive through Lake Street, Chicago Avenue. It's where a lot of the burned out buildings are. It was just totally devastated, and I mean it still is. There's a lot of the buildings are not being rebuilt because the owners haven't paid their property taxes on these destroyed rubble. And so the city won't clear out those buildings until they pay their property taxes. But it's kind of hard to pay your taxes when you have no way of getting income from your previous business. So
it's doomed.
Yeah, I mean, it's in really, really bad shape. Yeah, it's very bad. And, leave the plywood up because the same thing is going to happen no matter, I think, what, short of all the officers being, sent to life in prison. There's probably going to be more riots and devastation. I have a feeling, violence. So
now,
that is so sad.
Like, who were the owners of these buildings? Was it predominantly the Black community, or was it a white community? I'm not too sure on that.
Yeah, so that area, in Lake Street and Chicago Avenue was, the demographics of the areas changed a lot over, maybe the last 20 years. It was very much Black-owned businesses, and then now East Lake Street is a very heavy Somali population, and then down towards where I used to live when I went to school in the Cedar Riverside area on the campus. It's very heavily Somali area, and then if you go further west on Lake Street, it's heavily Hispanic and Hmong. St. Paul has a very high Hmong population from refugees that were transplanted there in the 80s. So, I mean, I can't imagine coming from that area of the world to a freezing cold Minneapolis without coats. And so we have kind of an interesting mix of immigrants here. So a lot of...
We used to say that Minnesota is for people who think the Wisconsin winters are too mild.
Very true. It was so cold. I think it was 2 winters ago. And I thought our house, we were listening to it was 30 below without the wind chill. And they shut all the restaurants down. I mean, everything was shut down because it was too dangerous to go outside. Cars, you can't start your car. I mean, nothing was going on. And I thought my house was going to like implode because of all the weird sounds that were going on. I mean, you could get your dogs outside. I broke our outside door because the plastic got so brittle on the hinge that I was so angry I couldn't. It was so cold and I just broke it. So, yeah, it can get pretty cold, but I think it's sort of a running joke. You know, Minnesotans like to complain to each other, but if someone else asks about it, it's like, oh, it's no big deal. We're so tough. You know, it's Minnesota. We don't even need a coat. It's not even cold enough. So. But we like to complain. So.
No, I was talking to a friend of mine a month or two ago about all the riots going on, and they were telling me it was like it was not white. All the businesses are owned by white people. It was just black people who rented the accommodations, and I'm like, I don't think that's true. And she got very adamant, and we said, okay, you know what, we're going to change the subject. But I was just like, I'm pretty sure this is not what you think it is.
Yeah, no, it's you know, I'm sure the city block, you know, the buildings themselves are, you know, probably owned by you know,
landowners.
Yeah, you know, they have the companies that own the buildings, but I mean, the businesses themselves are, you know, there's a lot of barbershops, small grocers, you know.
Right, the businesses themselves don't want to be in the real estate business, right?
No, I mean, nobody.
They're real business to run.
Yeah, and nobody wants their buildings burned down, and no one wants their businesses burned down. So it doesn't. I mean, either way, it's just devastating. So, and then the communities they serve don't have. I mean, because of the riots, they shut down the buses, so people were pretty much trapped downtown without anything. You know, no means of getting food, or I mean, because the Cub Foods, which is our big grocer here, was, I mean, burned out. Target was destroyed, which employs a lot of people that work in the community. So it's pretty bad. So.
Just reminds me of reading about Watts when I was growing up, and the stuff that was happening down in California when after the riots back in the 90s. And I'm like, you're destroying your own stuff. I don't understand this. And then, of course, in this case, at least in that case, it was like righteous anger. Most of the riots, I understand, are like rich white kids are coming in and stoking up like a captive population.
Yeah,
well, it's a question of whether they're outsiders or not, too. I mean, I would. It's less likely people would riot, destroy their own city, right? I mean, you would think.
In some ways, because the Antifa are these kids. I mean, the population is prime because everyone was unemployed, because they were shut down, and they had nothing to do because we shut down all the interesting things to do during the summertime. So it's easy to rile up a population like that when you send in instigators, and the Antifa is the instigating party, from what I could tell.
Yeah, and I think another element is, you know, when people go through and they think that they're using it as a tool for whatever you want to call justice. You know, they think they're owed something, and they're going to strike out at people that they think are withholding whatever it is that they're withholding. You know, so they burn down the TCF bank. They go after the police precinct. So, I mean, which looks like, I mean, you want to know about an army base. I mean, yeah. Well, the whole barbed wire and floodlights and gates. I mean, they have cement, you know, cinder block walls around walls. So it's you know, and I think just people just get caught up in it. You know, they see, you know, they're looting, so free stuff. You know, let's just smash things, and it doesn't really. They don't think about the long-term effects. So.
Like,
and now, I mean, you have
Not that long term.
No, not that long term. And then we have community groups. So now the cops don't want to go out and patrol because they're
Nope.
being totally vilified. And we have the city council that doesn't care about the people that actually live here. They just want to appear as woke as they can and go along with the narrative. Meanwhile, we have people that actually live in the community who are trying to form community groups pleading for there to be more cops on the streets because, I mean, the shootings and the street violence has just been exponential, record-breaking this year. So it's very sad. Everything from 8-year-old kids to Lacey Johnson is running against Ilhan Omar.
Yeah. Yes.
And one of his campaign door knockers was shot and killed outside a gas station in Minneapolis. So
yeah.
it was very sad, a 17-year-old kid, and it's.
Oh, that was about a week and a half ago or something? Right?
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago now. Yeah. So it didn't really make very much news, even here locally, which says a lot in itself. So.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was very sad. So I don't know. And then, Elon's got this whole vote harvesting
Right.
deal. So there's lots going on in Minnesota right now. So it's always.
Now, I didn't see the vote harvesting actually reported in the Star Tribune.
Yeah, it took, and I watched the morning local channels because I go to the gym, and you have all the TVs lined up, and they have all the networks, and it's so amazing. You watch, your CNN and versus like Fox News, and it's like two different worlds, and the local stations news, they just ape each other, so they all had the same headlines, and they had each maybe 2 minutes about it, maybe, so. And it's always some kind of excuse, like we can't prove anything, or we're not really gonna. No comment from Elon. This is just race.
Yeah.
It's racist and the whole thing. So it's just the usual.
I mean, we have the video of the guy bragging about it.
I
mean,
know. Yeah.
This isn't just suggestive. This is.
No, well, then they'll call Project Veritas some kind of weird right-wing, kook show. So I don't know, they'll discredit the whole thing. So
yeah,
they find a way.
Well, I mean, you know what? I watch stuff coming out of the United Kingdom, and one of the shows I watch is a guy called Meyer Tusi, and he's like second generation, I think Pakistani, and he's a conservative, and he does this show, and he's now selling T-shirts that say "We are the media," and there's just all these new guys just walking up Tim Pool style. Tim Pool's a revolutionary now, and where everyone's just aping him and just going down with their phones and start talking to people. I was watching the live stream. I got to the main feed last week in England, where they had basically there's a 25,000 person anti-COVID lockdown thing where people are screaming at the top lungs, no more masks. And they send the cops to disperse the crowd in that. So there was an attempted revolt against the lockdown measures today. I don't know what happened with that. I think they failed because they tried to put in an amendment that said you had to get debate going in Parliament again over the measures and not give them another 6 months of like unlimited power. And the speaker blocked the amendment, so it meant that if the vote went forward, it was either another 6 months of total control or nothing. And so people are worried that it was kind of like no one wants to stop the government from having no powers whatsoever. But they might have dropped it. Who knows? I'll have to check that later.
To be continued.
Yeah. But yeah, so people in the problem, as bad as the lockdown here is in Ontario, and I complain about it, it's like England, it's just out of control. The government passes a 10 p.m. curfew.
Because COVID only comes out during the day, right?
Yeah, but, or whatever. They didn't want people drinking all night and getting in parties. So what ends up happening in London on the first day of the thing, everyone comes out all at the same time, instead of like normally over the course of a night, they just kind of go home when they feel need to. They all came out and they started having no social distance mass party in the bar districts of London. thousands and thousands of people. They clogged up the tube. They did all this stuff. And then the next day, the press goes to, because the government had set up a government, a scientific advisory body. And they went to so why did you tell the government to do this? And we're like, we didn't tell the government to do that. They didn't even bother asking us. They went ahead and did this on their own. And they went to the chief of the London police chiefs, and they're like, no, we don't want them to do this because everyone will go home over time.
Spread it out.
And there's another, like, they were trying to regulate how much decibels people could play on music because they want to control that. Meanwhile, all the kids at the universities have decided that 4 o'clock is now the new 9 o'clock. So they're just drinking earlier.
Yeah, it's very sad.
And yeah, so they're just out of control over in London. So more and more people are just and in England itself, and they're just like, they've made so many stupid rules. All these things are happening, but more and more people are like, the lockdowns are now worse than the virus. That's been coming. More and more people are coming to that conclusion, and when you do that, then your quarantine is broken.
Mm-hmm. Well, California has been pretty draconian.
Oh yeah.
Don, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I have. It's still, well, a lot of things were locked down until somewhat recently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty draconian here, and I don't think it's necessary.
Does it vary pretty drastically from county to county, or
it does? It does. Yeah. Every county sets their own rules. Okay. And then cities set their own rules within there, and it's pretty arbitrary.
Yeah.
And it's not based on. I can't tell if it's based on anything. I mean, to me, the only metrics that matter are like deaths per capita, with respect to normal causes of death, mm-hmm. and how the hospital resources are being used. Too many hospital resources are being used, and to me, those are the two metrics that matter. Nothing else really does. Yeah. Because, there are a lot of people who are asymptomatic. There are a lot of people who just, it's not a problem. They just, some people just get immunity from it. Some people just have a sniffle for a day or something and it's over. So it's not, it's a little crazy. And I think the people here tend to be, overdo what I call the hygiene theater.
Yes.
And some people are wearing masks when they're out in the park and walking up the hills, hiking in the hills. They're wearing masks, and I
you chuckle? Do you laugh? Do you yell at them out your window and say,
"I wouldn't do any good"? It'd be more fun to suggest that 2 masks are necessary. Mm-hmm. Maybe I can get them to wear 2 masks. That would be cool.
I do see the people that wear the gas mask type masks and then the face shield over, and I'm like, okay, now you're safe. Now
it's sad.
It is. It's so sad. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went for a walk this morning, and I live near Stanford, and pretty much everybody I saw, they're out walking their dogs and stuff, and also sometimes what they'll do is they won't have their mask on, but when they come near me, they'll put their mask on, which, looks about as impolite as possible, right?
Mm-hmm. That's true. I don't want you.
And how close are you going to get to me? For how long? We're just going.
Yeah.
It's not a tight sidewalk or anything, And I'm not, splattering anyone. It's
all the
crazy.
evidence I've read, even by the World Health Organization and all that, masks don't work outside unless you're like jammed in like real close, like at a protest or something.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the worst case is something like a subway, where you're tightly packed.
I would wear a mask on a subway,
in a closed place, mm-hmm. especially for an extended period of time, because that just multiplies it. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. So let's see. A couple more Minneapolis questions.
Okay.
First off, seen lilacs around? Did you bump into them? Or?
No, I don't. I don't run into him. I don't. Unfortunately, I think if I did, I don't even know what I would do. So,
No,
yeah.
he's throwing the Mary Tyler Moore hat up.
Maybe, yeah.
Right?
That'd be the bat signal. It'll be no. So I think he works downtown.
At WJM.
Yes, our WJN. Yes. So he's the proper newsman. Probably more Lou Grant, I suspect, than Ted Baxter, but. I don't know. No, it'd be interesting, but no, I don't. I get to read his column in the local paper, so that's pretty cool. But that's
great.
About it.
So
yeah.
You're the only one that gets to hang out with the founders there, Don.
Yeah. Yeah. I live near Peter Robinson. So.
Do you run into Peter?
Oh, I used to.
Robinson, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my dog died last year.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But I used to go on dog walks all the time. And I'd run into him every once in a while, and
That's cool.
And it was great. Yeah, because he lives right near Stanford. I live right near Stanford, so yeah. And yeah, it's great seeing him every once in a while.
Cool. Does he wear like a suit when he's out walking? Like, is he proper when he's out walking his dog? That's what I imagine. I don't know.
He is. No, he does. He has like
more of a sweater.
Sweater like tied around. Yeah, no.
I usually see him on a bicycle, and he just stops by and we talk for a bit.
Cool.
But yeah, he's just talking to him. He's just like the character on the podcast. He's the same person exactly. He's ridiculously charming fellow, just ridiculously charming.
I bet. I think it's nice to hear that people are how they come across in public as they are in private. So
yeah. Anyway, the other thing I want to ask. So, is there a Republican group of some sort in Minneapolis? Perhaps an underground. Secret handshakes, or I guess secret elbow taps nowadays.
We have a knock. Yeah.
Is
the little slide thing opens at the.
Because there are local. I mean, around where I live, we actually have Republican groups. Several of them. Certainly, every county has a GOP office, I think, and there's a Republican Women of Silicon Valley group, and there's the one I mentioned before, the Liberty Forum, which has these speakers come in. You have anything going on like that in Minneapolis? Any Republican groups at all?
Not really. I think as far as activism go, it's pretty much, as far as I know, mostly just the proper party. What they, the Minnesota GOP. Like, you have to be pretty active in, the caucuses and in actual party events and things. So we don't have any like informal groups necessarily, like more of a grassroots kind of a thing. So it's kind of something I miss actually from college. We there was like the college Republicans, and then they were all sort of the caricature of the wearing a blazer and glasses and kind of that type kind of kid. And then I was part of the campus conservatives, and we were the ones that were doing the sidewalk chalk and making parody papers that we'd staple to everything and antagonizing the women's groups, and everyone hated us, but we were like a dozen people, and I think we got more interest and press on campus than any other group. And I kind of wish that kind of transferred over into I guess adulthood, the general public here in Minnesota, in Minneapolis in particular, because I think a lot of people feel the same way. But it really is like like you have to whisper in the corner about your political views. Like, it's never anything overt. The liberals can walk around with their "I hate Trump" like handwritten shirts, and they're lawn signs that are just covering their, like 5 Biden signs, you know, on one lawn, and their Black Lives Matter signs in their windows and their rainbow flags and everything else. But if you're a Republican or a conservative, it's very much you keep to yourself. You know, our neighbor actually comes into
Same thing here, by the way.
Yeah. So
Same
I
thing
mean,
here.
okay, yeah. So you get it, and and I don't know why that is. I don't know why.
Right.
Conservatives.
And you don't want to put a bumper sticker on your car because you know it'll get keyed.
Yep, absolutely.
And which means the best way to get them back is to put like Trump bumper stickers on other people's cars.
Yep.
Slap it, or yeah, that's
like if you see a Biden bumper sticker, cover it with a Trump bumper sticker and see what happens.
And now you're thinking, I like it.
Yeah, I remember QAnon not QAnon, but one of those like hacker groups. They went on during one of the Seattle riots. The guy went down there with a bunch of Trump bumper stickers, and he saw the protesters. They came in. They all went off to protest. He came over, put freaking Trump signs back, bumper stickers on all their cars. And when they came back, they found all their cars destroyed.
Tires slashed.
Yeah. Well, on fire.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's very interesting what the the dichotomy between the two, you know, and what people will roll their eyes at, you know, someone wearing a Trump hat, you know, and then whisper behind their back or confront them. But anyone can wear their keep abortion legal and all, whatever it is that they want to do for their, and it's applause. But
during the election, I usually put up signs for our candidate up. And my one friend and I do it. And he's like, you can always tell who their conservative voters are, Dave. And I'm like, how do you know? Because they have the best lawns. The best well-maintained lawns. We're putting signs in there. We're like, oh, this is a very nice place here. And there's all the houses around them are crap. But the one old Italian guy's got his perfect lawn going on.
Sure.
An alternate approach that I heard about recently, although it seemed obvious, instead of putting Republican sign on the front, put a flag.
Yep.
American flag. It's more subtle.
That's what we have in our front yard. So it's very, very true. And we also have little signs that say, thank you to the Minneapolis police. And if you have one of those signs on there, chances are you're not going to go riot that night or, you know, Molotov cocktail some building or something. So, you know, there are subtleties for sure. So,
but I will not put a Trump sign and I will not put a Trump bumper sticker on my car. It'll get keyed.
Yeah.
Although I have one that kind of does, a car that doesn't matter at this point. But and
you have a bait car.
and it's 20 years old, and yeah, I'm not going to put a Trump sign in the front lawn because I'm sure the house will be something horrible will happen. So I'm not going to do that. Not worth risking.
And isn't it funny that nothing ever really happens to people that have all the Biden signs or the liberal signs? So they don't have to worry about raging mobs of conservatives going and egging someone's house.
We had something like that. Actually, we had something like that in our last municipal election because we don't have municipal political parties. It's only at the provincial and federal level. So the one person started who was the most left person who ended up winning the council seat. But one of the opponents several opponents just got mad, and one guy who's now like my counterpart and like riding president in there, he was one of the councilors and council candidates, and he and his buddy started driving around finding that woman's signs and all the other lefty signs, and we're stealing them off their lawns.
Oh boy! Well, you Canadians have it backwards then. I don't know.
That was not a usual thing. It's usually the left guy stealing people's signs in some places, but this guy, several people got really annoyed and just said, I'm not going to win this, so started
get the signs.
Stealing everyone's signs. It was fun. Especially since a lot of people didn't actually ask for the signs that were put on their front lawns. What was happening is that their membership list from the NDP, who are one of the parties. They just handed out their membership list to people and said, drop these signs here. They're all our supporters.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if that would fly here, but I don't know.
Yep. Anyways, why don't I get back? So it sounds like you consider yourself definitely a conservative, not a libertarian or classical liberal.
No, I mean, I'm conservative, but you know, you know, I just, the more government encroaches on every aspect of your life, I think people it's just a moving target where, you know, people just sort of get used to that false sense of security that government doesn't really provide, but people think, you know, it's like the moral hazard question where people just take on more risky behaviors and that they can blame someone else. If they can blame government, then they cede more responsibility to government. And I think it's just an ever-moving goalpost. So I think, you know, the sad thing is individual responsibility seems to really be lacking. And I think just more government, less freedom. So and I think we're just seeing that more and more all the time. And whether the Democrats I mean, I think Republicans in office are slowing the pace maybe, but I don't think it's a reversal is really, I don't know, possible. I don't know, maybe Don maybe you guys have a different take on it, but I'm not very optimistic on that front.
Right. Well, you know, my take is less ideological and more raw power and the incentives of having power and political power, which brings in money in terms, you know, because of graft.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big incentive for everything. And the claims about making life better, solving problems and all are just a smokescreen to get more power. And perhaps I'm getting cynical in my old age. I don't know, but
you're a realist, I think.
You know, well, you know, in the physics world, you deal with masses and forces, and in real life, the same rules apply, right? Incentives, a monetary incentive, is a force and will move objects, and that, you know, and that can be like a $300,000 no-show job for your relative, right? That would be a consultant.
They're consultants, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing with when Obama became a senator, his wife got a $300,000 a year no-show job as a diversity consultant at the Chicago hospital.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. That's how you pay people off legally.
Yeah.
And then the Hunter Biden thing, of course. But I mean, it's got to be the most popular way to pay politicians off.
Yeah, I think I can't remember. You know, when all this the latest Trump tax controversy happened. You know, people say, "Well, I'm more concerned about politicians that become millionaires than millionaires that become politicians."
Yeah.
And it's kind of that same concept.
Yeah, same thing, exactly. Yeah. And and I, you know, I can't speak from inside knowledge or anything, but it sure looks this way. You know, sure looks this way.
No one cares. I thought if we would actually see his tax returns, people would delve into what charitable deductions he was giving and see that would be an actual like scandal. Oh my God, back 10 years ago, he was giving stuff to Planned Parenthood or something like that because when he was still a New York Democrat, and they would try using that against him. No, they're just going after like the depreciation of assets. And it's like, that's arcane stuff that only accountants understand. Like no one, it's not going to change any votes. You're not going to get people angry at him by doing that. All the people who've already made up their minds one way or the other are not going to be interested in this.
Yeah, and so I graduated with a degree in accounting, and I think my tax class was by far, which is ridiculous, was by far the most interesting class I took in my accounting career there. And you know, and going back to what Don said about, grifters and the media goes along with this. It's all just sort of a smokescreen to distract from what's really happening. If you want to, Trump is just utilizing the tax laws that are put in place by these politicians, same as the police are using the same laws that city councils and municipalities are writing. So if you have problems with what the police are doing, if you have a problem with the president utilizing these things, look at the people writing the laws and what they're doing or not doing. Instead of attacking the people that are just working within these laws, it's frustrating that way, I think. And
so true. And like the tax laws are something like 85,000 pages or something.
Oh my gosh!
And
it's like and written on those little Bible thin pages.
There's no possible reason for that, right?
No.
There's a good reason. I mean, how can politicians pay off their clients if they can't give them special carve-outs in the tax code? I mean, like, you want to stop all this nonsense. Flat tax. Boom.
But imagine how many accountants
would have to live within its means, and it wouldn't be able to do all the things that it's able to do. Politicians would have a whole lot less control of your life.
But all of the accountants would go out of business. You can't have that. Because only you have to have an accountant to understand everything.
Well, it wouldn't happen suddenly. But,
No.
but yeah, I mean, it's this raw evidence, right? That you have this 85,000 page tax code. What more evidence do you need, right?
Yeah. And I can't remember if it was one of the first years Trump came in office and he actually had like the text. It was like a pile of all it was the regulations or the code.
The regulations, yeah.
And it was like taller than the average man, and it was, and I mean this, and you have this visual here, and the pile never gets smaller, right? It just keeps getting bigger, and same with the tax code, because they never undo anything. They just add on to things to make it more complicated. And
I think there was like a scene with a forklift. I think that was the 2014 election of McConnell. He brought in like the tax code on a forklift.
Yeah. So
here's the tax code on a forklift. That describes it nicely.
Yeah.
Okay, so why did you join Ricochet, or how did you find out about this little site?
So I follow Bethany Mandel on Twitter, and I read, she had a column in the New York Times about the Second Amendment and self-defense. How her mom bought a gun to protect her family from, I think it was criminal activity in her area where she lived, and how that was, it was around the time of the Florida school shooting. They always politicize, that kind of thing, and I just commented on her article, and she said, "Oh, you should write about it for Ricochet." And I was like, "What?" I don't know. So then, and then I checked out the site, and it was like, this feels right. It was a good, for the most part, a lot of intelligent people having intelligent discussions and talking about a wide range of issues, and I don't know, it was great. So click join, and that's it. So it's a lot of fun. Okay. What about, so.
Yep. And what is the thing you most like about Ricochet?
I think that no one takes themselves too seriously for the most part, right? I think that's one of the benefits of, being on the right side of politics, is we have a sense, I think people mostly have a sense of humor about ourselves and can laugh at ourselves, and politics isn't necessarily life or religion.
So my sense of humor might be a little unusual.
Well, I mean, it's a wide variety, right? We have a variety. It's a diversity of thoughts and opinions, and and it's really good discussions. And I no matter what I think about something, someone will comment and open up a whole nother, a thought process or perspective, and it's
yeah, especially a new way to look at things, for instance. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And from all over the country and the world. So, people are all over, and they have different viewpoints and from different places. And I can talk about Minneapolis, and Don has it from, California and Canada. So
yes,
it's pretty cool.
We did have one question from the group for you.
Oh.
Randy Wovoda wanted to know if you, I don't think you will, but are you going to flee the state of Minneapolis to less lefty climes?
My husband and I have talked about it actually pretty seriously. Just this last year, for the first time, probably. My brothers actually both moved out of the city with this last year. They moved to the suburbs. They've got small kids, and you know, for their safety and for a better education. Public schools are just atrocious, and they're only getting worse in Minneapolis school district. I don't know. I mean, we've definitely thought about. My husband has applied for jobs, not seriously, you know, in other states. You know, we had in Texas, and so I don't know. I mean, maybe, but my family's still here.
Mm-hmm.
This is in Oregon, which is not too much better. Which isn't too much better. So we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Well, yeah. So what was one thing? Well, we can always talk about the big issue that happened last night.
Oh yeah.
I guess Don, did you actually watch it?
I watched the whole thing. Yeah.
Watch the whole thing.
Yeah. I was kind of, yeah, I'm a little disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I thought Biden was kind of annoying, and Chris Wallace was. Chris Wallace, you know, okay.
Oh boy, I can't wait to hear this take.
The day before, Chris Wallace said that he wanted to be a moderator in the form of someone you don't hear from. He wanted to say, if people don't talk about the moderator, I've done my job.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite
failed
happened.
That. My friend was on Facebook last night congratulating him on his presidential campaign and was looking forward to seeing what else he had to say.
Oh no!
Yeah, the exact opposite happened, and you know.
That being said, it is hard to not get involved when you're trying to moderate Trump.
Yeah, sure, but you know, he did the weird fact-checking stuff. You know, he just a lot of the stuff he brought up, I thought was just wrong. You know, for instance, that when Trump was talking about the violence in the Democrat-run cities, Chris Wallace brought up, well, it happens in Republican-run cities too, like Tulsa.
I was listening to that and I was like, what Republican-run cities there, Chris? Like,
I mean, the largest Republican-run city is, we know this from our last one, is San Diego, from Blue Yeti.
Yep.
Yeah, they had the mayor on the Ricochet flagship podcast a while ago, and he's an interesting fellow. Sounded like.
I still haven't heard that. Okay.
I mean, he's the kind of guy that you're
dial it up on this thing here,
running to be mayor, a Republican mayor in California. He's not like not going to be as radical as someone. He's not going to be the next Ted Cruz, but I mean, like, hey, I just want to get in power so we can stop spending money like drunken sailors. Is that so wrong? But I was on a live stream with some people, and I was defending Trump or something like that, and or being from the right. And I just like, you know, you're right. Chris Wallace is sort of like, you're not, the job of the moderator is just to tell Trump and Biden not to yell at each other and to not interrupt each other. He's not supposed to be putting his own facts into there. Right. Biden's job is to say, what about Republican cities that are going wrong, right? Though I will say I didn't feel like Chris Wallace was doing a Crowley thing there, where she was on the side of bailing out Obama versus Romney. I think Wallace was more just being a typical reporter in this day and age.
Right, now we have this long history of these moderators that are not at all moderate, right?
Yeah. Why the hell are reporters moderators?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's always gets me. Get a political science prof in. people, or a
Good idea.
lawyer, or someone who actually moderates debates for a freaking living.
Yeah.
Don't bring in these media personalities. I was watching the 1980 debate with some friends a few weeks ago because we had a conservative leadership, and we got bored at our debate because it was so bad. So my friend's like, let's do something else. I'm like, okay, I'll put on to mollify him because he worships the presidency of the United States. It's his personal religion, and he can't stand Trump for that reason. But he came in and he brought in, we put on the Reagan-Carter debate, and because he wanted to see the there you go again moment. And it was just so fascinating. The League of Women's Voters comes out. The reporters are only asking pre-selected questions. There's like a panel of them, of all like the David Brinkley types. But the moderator's the woman from the League of Voters, and it's just like very respectful of everything. I don't think she would have put up any with either Trump or Biden doing what they did last night, but.
So I didn't think Trump took the best advantage of the time. I thought he did okay, but it just didn't take advantage of it. And part of it was the sort of nagging from Biden. Biden throwing out these lies and fake things and all. It sort of tripped Trump up a little bit, I think. I think it would have been better if Trump would have just started each time saying nonsense and then talked about what he really cares about.
He had a few points where he didn't do any prep. Apparently, I guess at the last week, he brought in Chris Christie to help him out a little bit. But he had the same, I felt he was doing the same thing George W. Bush did in the first debate in 2004, where I'm the president and I have more important things to do than do prep. So Kerry comes along and like clocks him out. And I felt that was very much where Trump was like, should have been less like always on the attack. Give the guy this. Trump's good with the zingers, but you can't bring in a zinger if you're just talking over all the time, or you're hitting with us with 50 zingers in a row. You got to let Biden barrel on and then hit him with something that throws him off. But I think he was under the impression that Biden and maybe Biden's campaign was doing all that stuff where his campaign was ending at 10 a.m. on every day in the week just to throw people off. You think he was that doddering old fool that a lot of people believed him to be, because he didn't come off that way last night.
Jenna, what do you think?
Well, I didn't. I was working last night, so I missed it. But I heard a lot about the whole Trump didn't denounce the white supremacists and the Proud Boys, or the, I don't know what.
Proud Boys.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it's, what struck me was how much you see in the news about the Proud Boys. And I don't know, because I don't probably pay as much attention to this as I should. So maybe you can fill in the blanks a little bit, but how much you hear about the violence by Proud Boys versus Antifa, and how much the time disparity between what they're giving, Biden about questioning, it's just an idea. And yet we see the images from Portland and all over the country, in Seattle, versus I don't know any Proud Boys. I've never seen them in the news for killing anybody or shooting or burning. They march with their little things, and so, I don't know.
Here's how it kind of went down in the debate. So Trump actually did something smart in that at that point, because they started saying, well, are you going to denounce all these left-wing or right-wing groups? And he's like, well, you're not asking my opponent to denounce any of the left-wing groups. And then he said, oh, and what right-wing groups am I supposed to denounce? And then Chris Wallace is like, and he did Proud Boys. And Trump's like, the Proud Boys, I guess. And then he kind of like, all my friends were expecting him to come out and say, Chris, I've answered this question like 100 times before. I've thoroughly denounced. Why do you keep bringing it up? Or to play, or just do the simple and say, fine, I denounced, like in the way he accepted on global warming. Fine, yes, I thoroughly condemned, but he didn't. And all my friends in my stream last night were very upset. They said, why is he missing this 3-point layup? And I'm like, because you didn't see the coronavirus. Well, we all saw, but all these left-wing, all the media is going to look at that and they're going to run with him not denouncing people because he's a racist. And whenever Trump is being called a racist, he wins. Versus if you watch the part of the debate where Biden nails him on coronavirus, that was some devastating stuff. When Biden looks directly at the camera and says, every person who's lost, we have 200,000 dead Americans. Everyone who's a family member of one of those people who died needs to go out and vote. And he's staring at the camera, and I'm like, oh, this is like the end of the world coming down on Trump now. And then, but no one's talking about that. All they're talking about is Proud Boys and racism. And
but the thing is,
the conversation.
The thing about this is that, and I think Trump was sort of right here in that he said, it's not Trump's responsibility to study up on the Proud Boys, which may not even exist. We don't know. I don't know.
The Proud Boys exist. The Proud Boys are a reactionary movement of basically college football players. The first time I ever saw a Proud Boy, I'm watching a Ben Shapiro university speech, and this giant black guy gets up. And he said, and they passed the mic to him, and he's like, I'm just with the local chapter of the Proud Boys, and we're here to protect you, and do this. And I'm like watching this guy. I'm like, I know people like that. And the Proud Boys is like created by Gavin McInnes, who formerly of one of the Vice founders, who's a professional jokester and used to be on Fox News a lot. And it's just a group of guys, all these patriotic young kids who want to be proud of America, who love Ben Shapiro and watch all those shows. And they're big, tough, bulky guys. And they get together, they drink, and they hang out and talk about how cool America is. And they really should be in the Marines, probably. And they go, when they see Antifa, they go down there and they counter protest. And when Antifa starts a fight, they try to finish it.
Okay, so my question then is, why do they equivocate? Oops, did I?
No, you're good.
Okay, so then why do they equivocate? I lost my, I don't know what happened.
You want to know why the media is treating these guys as
the same as Antifa. Why on the same? Yeah, no, it's same as Antifa, because I mean I see these guys all dressed clad in black. They're launching, Molotov cocktails and throwing cans and bricks and marching with their, cement milkshakes. And then you have the Proud Boys who just march around. Like, I don't understand equivocating those two as the same. Like, I don't see newspaper headlines of Proud Boys going out and trying to destroy a police precinct. Like, I just don't see
they're a creature of they're proud to be Americans, and the left hate America, or they hate. You're a systemically racist country, and it needs to be all torn down. And the Proud Boys are people who are proud of the country, and they're fighting against the people that we like. And
I think it's an opportunity to call them
the Tea Party. They're demonizing the Proud Boys.
I think it's an opportunity to call them white supremacists too.
Yeah. And they can't get the Ku Klux. You can't find a Klansman alive anywhere.
Yeah, no, I think white supremacists. Yeah, I think the white supremacists. I mean, they're on a lot of like the lockup shows, like they're in the prisons, but I mean, I don't really see too many local chapters meeting in any Minneapolis gyms.
The Proud Boys are the closest thing they can find, and it's also the only reason we're talking about it is because Chris Wallace mentioned it.
Yeah.
Trump said, "So who am I supposed to be denouncing?" And Wallace stood there for 10 seconds trying to think of things. The first thing that came out of his mouth is the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just bad form. That was really bad form in Wallace's part.
Anyways, guys, this has been a great stream, but I really have to get going. It's one of the reasons why I've had it moved up. So I really want to thank you, and hopefully we can do this again. Certainly, maybe we can bring you in whenever there's another crisis, unfortunately.
Another riot.
Yeah, another riot, because we have been trying to get a couple people from the Midwest to come on and talk about this stuff, and didn't have anyone. I approached like Rufus R. Jones and a few other people, and just no one came on.
No, Jenna's our number one choice. Jenna's our number one.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Of
Well,
course.
as soon as she
appreciate
became
it.
my number one choice when I realized she was from Minneapolis, and then I realized that when she told me at the beginning of the stream.
I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. That sounds good. No, it's absolutely my pleasure.
This has been a blast. It's just great hearing from you. And now, whenever you write, I'll be able to imagine the beautiful Minnesota accent.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. You can just hear me when I write, and it'll come out.
It's great.
I should maybe like voice narrate everything just for a little added. No, I very much appreciate the invite. So it was my pleasure. So
okay, thank you. Okay, well, this has been Land of Confusion. I've been David March, and I'm signing off. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And go.